Hey everyone, I finished watching the next episode of Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, Something to Fight For. This is a really good episode. I really love this one. I'm gonna say that about just about every episode. It's really good, and I really loved it, because, let me look at the episode list of Time Force here in the DVD. Let's see if there's any episodes that, to my mind, are ones that were underwhelming from what I remember. Yeah, not really. I think I liked just about every single episode of Time Force. There's not a weak one in there. So, I don't know. I'll see when I watch through the whole series if there are any episodes in there that are weak ones that I don't seem to be remembering. Anyway, this episode, Something to Fight For, has a really intense opening. It starts right off with Rancic is screaming. His skin is like convulsing and doing all this crazy stuff. He's grabbing the one part of his face that's usually covered by the mask. He's scrambling to open up this thing. He pulls out this vial of something. He drinks it, and then he's calm again, and everything's back to normal. Wow, that was a lot of stuff happening. Anyway, then we get crap. I said anyway again. I am trying to stop that. So yeah, back to this. The Rangers, at the ruins of the time ship, they contact Captain Logan, their superior in the future. Logan tells them that they can't send back reinforcements, but they can send back weapons. So then, nearby, Wes, Wes is being driven to a meeting. The butler guy from the last episode, who was talking to him, he's the driver now. Wes suddenly tells him to stop. He gets out because he sees Nadira robbing a bank, and he's all cocky and overconfident and thinks that he can take out Nadira. He can't. But then Jen and the other Rangers, they pop in, and they're able to save him at the last minute. And, yeah, I didn't really take a whole lot in my notes about this scene, but it's a really important scene, and it's a really well done scene where, let's see, Jen is treating him kind of harsh, and he's like, "What's the problem? I'm on your side." And then, what was it? I can't remember what. She has a speech she gives him, and it is really good. Um, I can't remember now all the lines to it. I used to be able to, like, just memorize and recite episodes of Time Force, but now I can't. That's annoying. So yeah, it was something like, she tells him, "You're not fighting at all, you're playing." And then, what was it? "You've never had to fight for anything in your life." And then he goes, "Of course I have." And I always love the subtlety here, because it's like, of course I have. Like, he knows what she means, but he also knows that she's right. And then she says to him, was it, "When's the last time, was it, you had to fight for something? When's the last time you had to sacrifice everything for something that didn't help you? Something you couldn't buy," or something like that. Then they leave, and we see Wes behind, considering what she was just talking about. I really love all that. It's one of the reasons why Time Force is one of my favorite seasons, because, like, we have surprisingly deep characters and some actual meaningful dialogue for a Power Rangers show. I mean, compare this to, I don't know, any scene from Dino Fury where, I don't know, it's just lines, plot stuff, um, awkward cringe joke here and there. And I like Dino Fury. It's just, man, it's so weird that, like, we had Time Force and now we have, like, yeah, they never learned from that apparently, or at least not in recent years. Anyway, crap. Back to the thing. Blah blah blah. Oh yeah, this is a really funny thing. I've always loved this bit here. Nadira, she's gotten her butt kicked by Jen, and she's retreated. She goes back to Rancic's base, and she goes, "Daddy, I broke a nail fighting the Rangers," and he's like, "Aw, dear," and he takes her finger, mwah, kiss it better. And it's so weird. I love Nadira. She's such a weird villain. She reminds me like Harley Quinn, where she's like this kind of goofball, but then she's also really savage with the claws and Like, just suddenly she can turn on you. And then there's Ransik, who is just completely nuts. But then also there's scenes like this where he appears to really care about her, and yeah, like, very strange. Oh, and also, this is something I've always wondered about, like, how exactly they're related. Like, yeah, Nadira calls Ransik dad, or whatever, and, I always wondered, is she actually his daughter, or is he, like, or, like, later on in this, I don't know if maybe I should just wait until later in the series to talk about this, but, screw it, I'll talk about it now. Rancik's, a mutant. They don't really explain his origins very well. He just crawls out of goo one day. In Wild Force, it's implied that he was, like, human, so, I don't know. So, I always wondered, like, is Ransik, like, was he an underground leader of mutants, kind of like the Morlocks and X-Men? And maybe Nadira was, like, an orphan child that he took in, and that would explain why there's no mother. They never mention a mother. He never mentions, like, a significant other, or any kind of, like, relationship at all. But Nadira he treats as his daughter, and she treats him as his father. So I always wondered if maybe she was like an adopted mutant that like he found or something. It's an interesting thing to speculate on. So then, blah blah blah. Oh yeah, then we're. Oh, and this is a really cool parallel. We cut from Nadira and her father to Wes and his father. That's really neat. It was something I never noticed before. I don't know if it was intentional to show like, oh, here's how their relationship works, and here's how their relationship works. Let's see. Uh, Mr. Collins. What's his first name? I forgot. Whatever. Um, Mr. Collins is introducing Wes to these business people, and they're an interesting group of people. There's like some guys in business suits, then there's like just this woman standing off to the side, dressed semi-casually. I don't know what the story is here. And it's kind of interesting because now I was thinking like if they were to do this now in Power Rangers, like have someone be introduced to business people, they would all be in business suits and they'd obviously be like business people. There wouldn't be someone standing there just in semi-casual wear. So then, blah blah blah. Wes steps outside. Then Trip shows up. He's the Green Ranger, the dude with the green hair and the thing on his head. He's talking to Wes about Jen, and he's trying to apologize for Jen, kind of. And like Trip, of all the Rangers, really seems to believe in Wes the most, like that he should be part of the team. And that was something I always really liked about Trip was like just what a supportive character he was. And then, oh yeah, Wes leaves to go talk to Jen and convince her to let him join the team. And then we cut to Ransik, and what he's doing. His ship is full of all the criminals, the mutant criminals in cryostasis. So he's taken one down, he puts it in the thing, and brings it back to life, and then he sends it to wreak havoc on the city. And then back with Jen and the Rangers, Trip tells Jen that they've detected mutant DNA, and Jen decides to let Wes join the team, and then there's a big battle, and that's pretty cool. And then there's a really weird part where a piece of armor gets chipped off of the monster, and let's see, oh yeah, Circuit pops up, the little robot owl thing that Trip has, and it says, his mutant DNA has been exposed, and that makes it grow giant, because, it was weird. I don't know, weird reasoning in Time Force for why the monsters grow. Like, it's not a magic-based season, and it's also not aliens, so they can't use magic, technology, like futuristic technology, alien technology wouldn't really fit. So, and also this was a thing in Time Ranger also, where the monster would take the thing off of wherever, and there'd be like a purple thing under it, and then suddenly there'd be bubbles, and then they'd be giant. Whatever. Oh, and then we get introduced to the Time Force Megazord. Let's see. Blah blah blah. Yeah, I wrote about the Megazord. This is like the one weak point in Time Force for me is the Zord design for, well, the Megazord at least. I'm not a big fan of it. Like, it's fine. It's just, I don't know, something about it lacks personality. It doesn't really feel like a Megazord for some reason. It feels like a secondary Zord, like the type of thing that should be introduced later on. And then Circuit tells them to transform to red mode, and the Megazord changes to a completely different Megazord formation, which is just kind of weird on top of everything. Why do you need two forms for the one Megazord? And oh yeah, and also the individual Zords that make up the Megazord, they aren't really interesting either. They're just jets with different colors. Anyway, the red mode Megazord, it looks better, kind of. I don't know, it at least looks more recognizable than the normal Megazord mode, but I don't know. Like, so far in the first couple seasons I've watched, let's see, in Mighty Morphin, the Zords were really meaningful. We had the original Megazord, there was Titanus, there was the Dragon Zord, then we got the Thunder Zord, and then the Tiger Zord, then they're destroyed, and then the third season we get the Ninja Zords, and later the Shogun Zords. The Alien Rangers had the Battleborgs and Zeo. We had those Megazords, and then we had later the Zeo Battle Zords, and those were some of my favorite Zord designs ever in Zeo. In Turbo, we had the Turbo Megazord, the first one, and then we got a second one later, and the second one is kind of how I feel about the Time Force Megazord, where I don't really care for it. And then in Space, we had the Astro Megazord, that was cool. Then, let's see, the Mega Voyager was cool. I keep thinking there was another Zord in there that I didn't think was as cool. Lost Galaxy. The Lost Galaxy Megazord is really cool. That one's definitely one of my favorites. And then later on, we had the Centaurus and Stratoforce Megazords. They were freaking awesome. The Lightspeed Megazords were all pretty cool. I especially love the Super Train Megazord. I just love the look of that one. And then comes Time Force, and here's the first season. Like, even as a kid, I was kind of disappointed with the Zord designs. Or at least these ones. Later on, we'd get a Zord that is like another one of my personal favorites, but for now, the main Megazord, yeah, I don't know what it is about it, but it's just doesn't really stand out to me as being that special. Oh, but one thing it does have that is really cool is the saber. When it does the final strike on the bad guy, it holds the sword up, and then the hilt of it goes ch 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 ch, and there's a clock design around it, and it's going dun, 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 like the hands of a clock. And I think that's really cool. That's a really clever thing for the sword to do. And then, oh yeah, and this is another weird thing. Time Force is one of the rare seasons where the villains of the day aren't killed, like blown up in a big explosion. When the Zord hits them, they shrink down into a little vinyl figure. And I remember being a kid and wondering why Time Force didn't have a lot of monster toys. Because, yeah, like, why weren't there monster toys? That would have been so cool to have, like, these little mini figures of all the monsters as toys. Also, I remember, like, reenacting that as a kid. Like, I would take the Mighty Morphin monsters or whatever monsters, and I'd put them down there and run over and put them, like, in a coffee can and pretend that was the little, like, cryostasis thing the Time Force Rangers used. And, so let's see. Oh yeah, and then at the end, Wes is about to hand his Morpher back to Jen, but then she tells him to keep it. He's now officially part of the team, and there's this funny bit where Katie, the Yellow Ranger, gives him a huge hug. Katie, Katie! And I guess he learned her name, which is a good thing, because otherwise she would have squeezed him to death. Oh, well, whoops, there goes another Red Ranger. And, oh, and this is an interesting thing. Katie, at this point, at the beginning of the episode, there's a scene where Trip is trying to get some stuff out of the wreckage of the time ship, and she just picks it up with one hand, and then, and the sound design is great. When it hits the ground, it really sounds like, and it's something really heavy hitting the ground. Let's see, I know some later seasons would have, like, stuff falling apart, or, like, crumbling stuff, and it would just kind of bounce around, and they would try to cover it up with sound effects, but it didn't ever work quite right. Here it works perfectly. So anyway, later on, let's see, I remember when I was a kid, and later on they're talking about Rancic being in the future, people are genetically modified to be perfect or something. And I always wondered, is that why Katie has super strength? Was this like a modification they did to her? but they never really go too deep into detail, or at least not that I can remember. That's something I'll have to be keeping a close eye out for if they ever mention that in the future, if that is, like, if she is ever implied to have been genetically modified and that's why she has super strength like that. Um, let's see. So yeah, cool new equipment. We get cool character stuff with the Rangers. We get introduced to Wes's father a little bit more. Oh yeah, and there's a bunch of mysteries set up in this episode, like what was in the vial that Rancic drank? Why does it stop his whatever thing going on? Uh, so yeah, this is a really, really good episode. I can't say enough. Oh, one of the things I wrote down about this episode that, like, is, I don't know, it's something really interesting, is the show is only in its third episode, but it's already really good. Everything feels so polished and perfect. The characters are perfectly realized. There's no muddiness. There's no, like, padding. There's, I don't know, nothing weak or dragging about the episodes. Like, even in Lightspeed and Lost Galaxy, there were times where it felt like the crew probably didn't know quite what they were doing, and there was some weirdness here and there, but here everything feels so perfect and all fits together perfectly. The crew had really come together at this point, and they knew exactly what they were doing, and I always wonder, like, what would it have been like if Fox Family had never been sold to Disney and Disney didn't move the show to New Zealand? What if the show had stayed in Los Angeles with this same crew and kept going? I can only imagine how much better the show could have kept getting. Then again, Wild Force was shot, and that didn't necessarily go in a direction I thought was all that amazing, but it was okay anyway. That's all for this one. Hope you enjoyed this. See ya.